The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble corridors of Kensington Palace as Margaret Thompson adjusted her crisp uniform and prepared for another day as Princess Charlotte's personal attendant. She had served the royal family for 15 years, maintaining their private quarters with the utmost discretion and care. Nothing in her experience, however, could have prepared her for what she would discover that Tuesday morning in October. Princess Charlotte had returned the previous evening from a charity gala supporting children's literacy programs. The event had been widely covered by the media, with photographs showing the young princess in an elegant powder blue dress, smiling radiantly as she met with young readers and their families. The dress, a custom creation by one of Britain's most respected designers, had been the subject of considerable admiration from fashion commentators and royal watchers alike. Margaret entered the princess's dressing room with her usual quiet efficiency, expecting to find the evening gown hanging neatly in its designated place. The princess was known for her meticulous care of her clothing, often personally ensuring that special pieces were properly stored after important events. However, as Margaret approached the ornate wardrobe that housed the princess's formal wear, she noticed something unusual. The wardrobe doors, which were typically left slightly ajar for air circulation, were firmly closed and appeared to have been secured with unusual haste. Margaret found this peculiar, as it deviated from the princess's normal routine. She gently opened the doors, expecting to find the powder blue gown hanging in its proper place alongside the other formal dresses. What she discovered instead sent a chill through her composed demeanor. The beautiful dress that had graced countless photographs just hours before was crumpled in the far corner of the wardrobe, partially hidden behind other garments. More alarming still was the extensive damage visible across the fabric. A long, jagged tear ran from the left shoulder down to the waist, as if the delicate material had been caught on something sharp and pulled forcefully. Margaret's hands trembled slightly as she carefully extracted the damaged garment from its hiding place. The tear was not a simple snag or minor damage that could be easily repaired. The fabric had been violently separated, creating a gaping wound in the dress that would require extensive reconstruction, if repair were even possible. The edges of the tear were frayed and uneven, suggesting whatever had caused the damage had occurred with considerable force. As she examined the dress more closely, Margaret noticed additional details that deepened her concern. There were small spots of what appeared to be dirt or mud on the lower portion of the skirt, despite the fact that the charity event had been held entirely indoors. The princess's shoes from the previous evening, which should have been placed neatly in their designated spot, were nowhere to be found in the dressing room. Margaret's mind raced as she tried to piece together what might have happened. The princess had appeared perfectly composed and elegantly dressed in all the photographs from the evening. The dress had shown no signs of damage during the event, which had concluded at approximately 9 o'clock. The royal family's schedule indicated that Princess Charlotte had returned directly to the palace following the gala, with no additional stops or activities planned. The discovery was particularly troubling because of the upcoming state visit from the Danish royal family, scheduled for the following week. Princess Charlotte was expected to play a prominent role in several ceremonial events, including a formal dinner where she had planned to wear another dress by the same designer. The damaged gown had been intended for a series of official portraits that were to be taken later in the month. Margaret carefully placed the damaged dress on a clean cloth spread across the dressing table, taking care not to cause any additional harm to the delicate fabric. She examined every inch of the garment, hoping to find some clue that might explain how such extensive damage had occurred. The craftsmanship of the dress was exquisite, with hand-sewn beadwork and delicate embroidery that had taken skilled artisans weeks to complete. The more Margaret studied the tear, the more convinced she became that this was not the result of an accident. The force required to create such damage would have been immediately noticeable to anyone wearing the dress. It seemed impossible that the princess could have sustained such significant damage to her gown without being aware of it, especially given her well-known attention to detail regarding her appearance. As Margaret continued her examination, she noticed something else that struck her as odd. The princess's jewelry from the previous evening, including a diamond necklace and matching earrings that had been on loan from the Crown Jewels collection, were not in their usual secure location. The jewelry box where such precious items were typically stored immediately upon the princess's return was empty, with no indication of where the valuable pieces might have been placed. The absence of the jewelry, combined with the damaged dress and missing shoes, created a pattern that Margaret found deeply unsettling. In her 15 years of service, she had never encountered a situation where a royal family member's personal effects had been left in such disarray without explanation. The princess was known for her organized nature and careful handling of her formal wear and accessories. Margaret realized that she needed to take immediate action to secure the scene and report her discoveries to the appropriate authorities within the palace hierarchy. The damaged dress represented not only a valuable piece of clothing but also a potential security concern, given the unexplained circumstances surrounding its condition. The missing jewelry added another layer of complexity to an already puzzling situation. She carefully photographed the damaged dress from multiple angles using her authorized palace communication device, ensuring that the extent of the damage was thoroughly documented. The images would be essential for any subsequent investigation or insurance claims related to the destroyed garment. Margaret also made detailed notes about the position in which she had found the dress and the absence of the accompanying accessories. The weight of her discovery settled heavily on Margaret's shoulders, as she realized the potential implications of what she had found. The damaged dress was not merely a clothing mishap. It represented a mystery that could have far-reaching consequences for the royal family's security protocols and public image. The upcoming state visit made the timing of the discovery particularly sensitive, as any disruption to the planned ceremonies could have diplomatic ramifications. Margaret's training as a royal household staff member had prepared her for many situations, but nothing quite like this. She understood the importance of discretion and the need to follow proper channels when reporting unusual incidents. However, the nature of her discovery demanded immediate attention from senior palace officials, who could determine the appropriate course of action. As she prepared to secure the dressing room and report her findings, Margaret took one final look around the space, searching for any additional clues that might help explain the mysterious circumstances. The room, which was typically maintained in pristine condition, showed subtle signs of disturbance that she had initially overlooked in her focus on the damaged dress. A small makeup compact was slightly out of place on the vanity, and one of the decorative cushions on the reading chair was askew. These minor details, while seemingly insignificant, individually, contributed to Margaret's growing sense that something unusual had occurred in the princess's private chambers the previous evening. The cumulative effect of all these observations painted a picture of events that deviated significantly from the normal routine following a royal engagement. Margaret understood that her next actions would be crucial in ensuring that the proper authorities were notified while maintaining the confidentiality that was essential to her position. The discovery of the damaged dress and missing accessories would need to be handled with the utmost care to protect both the princess's privacy and the royal family's reputation. The story she was about to set in motion would challenge the palace's security protocols and raise questions that would demand careful investigation and discreet resolution. Detective Inspector Sarah Williams received the discreet call from Kensington Palace at precisely 11:30 that morning. As the Metropolitan Police's designated liaison for royal security matters, she was accustomed to handling sensitive situations involving the royal family with the highest level of confidentiality and professionalism. However, the brief description provided by the palace's head of security immediately captured her full attention. The request for a discreet investigation into what was being described as a wardrobe incident seemed unusual, even by the standards of royal protocol. Williams had handled everything from minor security breaches to lost jewelry cases involving the royal household. But something about this particular call suggested a complexity that went beyond routine property damage or theft. Upon arriving at the palace, Williams was escorted through a series of private corridors that most visitors never saw. The behind-the-scenes areas of the royal residence were bustling with activity, as staff members prepared for the week's scheduled events, but there was an underlying tension that experienced eyes could detect. Several senior staff members exchanged worried glances as they passed, and conversation seemed to halt abruptly when unfamiliar faces appeared. Williams was introduced to Charles Hartwell, the palace's head of security, a man whose 30-year career in royal protection had given him a reputation for discretion and thorough investigation. Hartwell's expression was grave as he led Williams toward Princess Charlotte's private quarters, briefing her on the discovery made by the princess's personal attendant earlier that morning. Margaret Thompson was waiting in a small sitting room, adjacent to the princess's chambers, her usual composed demeanor showing signs of strain. Williams had worked with palace staff on previous occasions and recognized the professionalism that characterized their approach to unusual situations. However, Margaret's obvious distress suggested that this incident was unlike anything she had encountered in her years of service. The damaged dress had been carefully preserved exactly as Margaret had found it, laid out on a clean sheet in the princess's dressing room under the supervision of the head housekeeper. Williams approached the garment with the methodical attention to detail that had made her one of the Metropolitan Police's most respected investigators of sensitive cases. The extent of the damage was immediately apparent and deeply troubling. The tear was not consistent with normal wear or even a typical accident involving delicate fabric. Williams had investigated numerous cases involving damaged clothing, from insurance fraud to assault cases, and the pattern of destruction suggested something far more deliberate than a simple mishap. Using her magnifying equipment, Williams examined the edges of the tear more closely. The fabric had been pulled apart with considerable force, creating a jagged separation that extended across multiple layers of the dress's construction. The beadwork around the damaged area showed signs of having been torn away violently, with several beads missing entirely and others hanging by thin threads. More concerning was Williams' discovery of what appeared to be foreign fibers caught in the torn edges of the dress. The fibers were dark in color and appeared to be from a different type of fabric entirely, suggesting that the dress had come into contact with another material during whatever incident had caused the damage. Williams carefully collected these fibers using evidence collection techniques, placing them in sealed containers for later laboratory analysis. The missing jewelry presented another puzzle piece that Williams found particularly significant. The diamond necklace and earrings that Princess Charlotte had worn to the charity gala were valuable pieces from the Crown Jewels collection, worth several £100,000 and carrying immense historical significance. The fact that these items had not been secured in their proper location raised immediate security concerns. Williams interviewed Margaret Thompson in detail about her discovery, taking careful notes about the exact condition and position of every item in the dressing room. Margaret's account was precise and thorough, reflecting her years of experience in maintaining the princess's personal effects. She was able to describe exactly how the room should have appeared, based on the princess's normal routine following formal events. According to Margaret, Princess Charlotte was meticulous about the care of her formal wear, particularly pieces that were custom-designed or borrowed from the Crown Jewels collection. The princess personally oversaw the proper storage of such items, ensuring that they were cleaned, catalogued, and secured according to strict protocols. The haphazard condition in which the dress had been found was completely contrary to the princess's established habits. Williams also spoke with the security guards who had been on duty the previous evening, reviewing their logs and conducting discreet inquiries about any unusual activities or observations. The guards reported that Princess Charlotte had returned from the charity gala at approximately 10:15, somewhat later than the originally scheduled time. However, this delay had been communicated in advance through proper channels and was attributed to the princess spending additional time with the young readers at the event. The security logs showed no unusual activity in the princess's wing of the palace following her return. The guards on overnight duty reported no disturbances, unauthorized visitors, or security alerts. The palace's electronic security systems, including motion detectors and door sensors in sensitive areas, had recorded no anomalous activity during the relevant time period. However, Williams discovered an interesting detail when reviewing the detailed timeline of the evening's events. The official photographer for the charity gala had taken the last confirmed images of Princess Charlotte in the undamaged dress at approximately 9:45 in the evening. These photographs showed the princess looking elegant and composed, with no visible signs of distress or damage to her attire. The gap between the last photographic evidence of the undamaged dress and the princess's return to the palace created a window of approximately 30 minutes during which the damage must have occurred. Williams found this time frame significant, as it suggested that whatever had happened to the dress had occurred during the princess's departure from the charity venue or her journey back to the palace. Williams requested access to the security footage from the charity venue, hoping to trace the princess's movements during the crucial time period when the damage must have occurred. The venue's security manager was cooperative, but reported that the cameras covering the departure area had experienced a technical malfunction between 9:30 and 10 o'clock that evening, creating a gap in the recorded coverage. This technical failure struck Williams as highly suspicious, particularly given the precise timing that coincided with the princess's departure. In her experience, such convenient equipment failures during critical moments were rarely coincidental. She made arrangements to have the palace's technical security team examine the venue's camera system to determine whether the malfunction had been accidental or deliberately caused. The investigation took on additional urgency when Williams learned about the upcoming state visit from the Danish royal family. The diplomatic implications of any security breach involving Princess Charlotte could potentially affect international relations and the carefully planned ceremonial events. The Danish delegation was expected to arrive within the week, and any disruption to the planned schedule could create diplomatic embarrassment for both countries. Williams also discovered that the damaged dress was one of 3 similar garments that had been commissioned for the princess's upcoming official duties. The designer had created a coordinated collection specifically for the state visit events, and the damaged piece was intended to be worn during a formal dinner with the Danish royal family. The destruction of this particular dress created not only a security concern, but also a logistical challenge for the upcoming ceremonies. As the investigation progressed, Williams began to develop a theory about the possible sequence of events that had led to the damaged dress and missing jewelry. The evidence suggested that something significant had occurred during the princess's departure from the charity venue, possibly involving an encounter or incident that had not been reported through official channels. The foreign fibers found in the torn fabric provided a potential lead that Williams was eager to pursue. Laboratory analysis of these fibers could reveal their origin and possibly provide clues about what or who the princess's dress had come into contact with during the incident. The pattern of the damage suggested that the dress had been grabbed or pulled forcefully, possibly during a struggle or attempt to prevent the princess from leaving a particular location. Williams coordinated with Hartwell to implement additional security measures for Princess Charlotte while the investigation continued. The missing crown jewels pieces represented a significant security breach that required immediate attention from the specialized team responsible for protecting the royal family's most valuable assets. Recovery of these items became a priority that extended beyond the scope of the dress damage investigation. The detective inspector also began discreet inquiries into the background of all individuals who had been present at the charity gala, focusing particularly on those who had interacted directly with Princess Charlotte during the evening. The guest list included representatives from various children's literacy organizations, local government officials, and members of the public who had been selected to meet the princess. Williams's experience in investigating cases involving public figures had taught her that seemingly innocent events could sometimes mask more complex situations involving overzealous admirers, political protesters, or individuals with personal grievances against the royal family. The charity gala's focus on children's literacy had attracted a diverse group of attendees, many of whom had not undergone the extensive background checks typically required for more formal royal events. As the second day of investigation concluded, Williams found herself with more questions than answers. The evidence pointed clearly toward some kind of incident involving Princess Charlotte during her departure from the charity venue, but the exact nature of that incident remained unclear. The damaged dress and missing jewelry suggested either a security breach that had been covered up or a personal situation that the princess was reluctant to discuss through official channels. Princess Charlotte sat in her private study, staring out at the palace gardens where autumn leaves danced in the afternoon breeze. The weight of the secret she had been carrying for the past 2 days felt heavier with each passing hour. She knew that Detective Inspector Williams and the palace security team were conducting their investigation with growing intensity, and she understood that her continued silence was only making the situation more complicated. The truth about what had happened that night at the charity gala was far more complex than anyone imagined. Charlotte had initially hoped that the incident could be quietly managed without involving the extensive security apparatus that now surrounded every aspect of her life. However, the discovery of her damaged dress had set in motion a chain of events that she could no longer control through silence alone. The charity gala had been proceeding exactly as planned until the final 30 minutes of the evening. Charlotte had genuinely enjoyed meeting with the young readers and their families, finding inspiration in their enthusiasm for literature and learning. The event had reinforced her commitment to supporting literacy programs and had provided her with several ideas for expanding the royal family's involvement in educational initiatives. As the formal portion of the evening concluded, Charlotte had been escorted toward the venue's private exit by her security detail, following the predetermined departure route that had been coordinated with local law enforcement. However, just as she reached the corridor leading to the exit, she had encountered someone who changed the entire trajectory of the evening's events. Emily Watson, a 7-year-old girl who had been part of the reading program showcase earlier in the evening, was standing alone in the corridor, tears streaming down her face. The child appeared to be lost and frightened, separated from her family in the confusion of the event's conclusion. Charlotte's immediate instinct was to stop and help the distressed child, despite the security protocol that called for her to proceed directly to her waiting vehicle. Charlotte had approached Emily with the gentle manner that had made her particularly effective in her work with children's charities. Through patient questioning, she learned that Emily had become separated from her grandmother while trying to find the restroom. The child was too upset to remember her grandmother's name clearly, and the noise and confusion of the departing crowd had made her even more frightened and disoriented. Against the advice of her security detail, who were eager to maintain the planned departure schedule, Charlotte had made the decision to personally help reunite Emily with her family. This choice, driven by genuine concern for a distressed child, had led to a series of events that would ultimately result in the damaged dress and missing jewelry that had prompted the current investigation. Charlotte's search for Emily's grandmother had taken them through several areas of the venue that were not part of the official tour route. The building's layout was more complex than it had appeared during the formal event, with numerous side corridors and service areas that connected the main exhibition spaces. The security team's concern about deviating from the planned route had been overruled by Charlotte's determination to ensure the child's safety. During their search, Charlotte and Emily had encountered Marcus Reed, a maintenance worker who had been cleaning up after the evening's event. Reed, who was in his early 20s and had been working at the venue for only a few weeks, initially appeared helpful and concerned about the lost child. He claimed to have seen an elderly woman searching frantically for a missing granddaughter and offered to lead them to where he had last seen her. Reed had directed Charlotte and Emily through a service corridor that led toward the venue's loading dock area, explaining that the grandmother had been asking building staff for assistance in that location. Charlotte had felt some unease about venturing into the less public areas of the building, but her concern for Emily's welfare and Reed's apparent knowledge of the grandmother's whereabouts had convinced her to follow his guidance. The service corridor was dimly lit and narrow, requiring Charlotte to gather her dress carefully to avoid snagging the delicate fabric on the rough walls or equipment stored along the passageway. The building's age and utilitarian design in these service areas contrasted sharply with the elegant exhibition spaces where the charity gala had been held. As they progressed deeper into the building's service areas, Charlotte began to realize that Reed's behavior was becoming increasingly erratic and concerning. His explanations about the grandmother's location became vague and contradictory, and he seemed more interested in engaging Charlotte in conversation than in efficiently locating the missing family member. Emily, meanwhile, had become quieter and more clinging, sensing the adult tension around her. Charlotte's growing unease proved to be well-founded when Reed suddenly blocked their path in a particularly narrow section of the corridor, claiming that he needed to speak with her privately about something important. His demeanor shifted from helpful concern to something more intense and personal, and Charlotte realized that she and Emily were potentially in a dangerous situation far from the security of the main event areas. Reed began speaking rapidly about his admiration for Charlotte's charity work and his belief that they shared a special connection that he had felt during brief eye contact earlier in the evening. His words revealed an unhealthy obsession with the princess that had apparently been developing over several weeks, following news coverage of her public appearances. The maintenance job at the venue had provided him with an opportunity to encounter her in person. Charlotte's training in dealing with potentially dangerous situations involving overzealous admirers kicked in as she realized the full scope of the threat they were facing. Reed's behavior suggested someone who had crossed the boundary between admiration and obsession, and his isolation of her in the service corridor indicated premeditation rather than spontaneous action. Attempting to maintain calm while protecting Emily, Charlotte had tried to redirect Reed's attention by expressing appreciation for his concern while firmly insisting that they needed to return to the main areas of the building immediately. However, Reed had become increasingly agitated by her attempts to leave, blocking their path more aggressively and making it clear that he had orchestrated the entire situation. The confrontation escalated when Reed reached out and grabbed Charlotte's arm. attempting to prevent her from leaving while continuing to express his delusional beliefs about their connection. Charlotte's defensive response had involved pulling away forcefully, but Reed's grip on her dress had resulted in the extensive tearing that had later been discovered in her wardrobe. In the struggle that followed, Charlotte's diamond necklace had become entangled in Reed's clothing and had been pulled free during her efforts to break away from his grasp. The earrings had fallen during the commotion, rolling into the dark recesses of the service corridor where they would be difficult to locate. Charlotte's primary concern had been protecting Emily and escaping from the increasingly unstable situation. Charlotte had managed to break free from Reed's grasp by using self-defense techniques she had learned as part of her security training. However, the struggle had left her dress severely damaged and her jewelry scattered. More importantly, Reed's behavior had indicated someone whose mental state was deteriorating and who posed a genuine threat to both her safety and Emily's well-being. The escape from the service corridor had been harrowing, with Charlotte carrying Emily while navigating the confusing maze of passageways back toward the main areas of the building. Reed had followed them for part of the way, continuing to call out about his feelings and his belief that Charlotte was making a mistake by leaving. His increasingly erratic behavior had confirmed Charlotte's assessment that he represented a serious security threat. When Charlotte finally reached the main areas of the building with Emily, she had been reunited with her security detail, who had been searching for them with growing concern. However, Charlotte had made a quick decision to present the situation as a simple case of helping a lost child, rather than revealing the full extent of what had occurred with Reed in the service corridors. This decision had been motivated by several factors, including her desire to protect Emily from additional trauma and questioning, her concern about the potential media attention that a security incident might generate, and her hope that Reed's behavior had been an isolated incident that could be handled quietly without disrupting the upcoming state visit preparations. Charlotte had instructed her security team to help locate Emily's grandmother, which had been accomplished within minutes once they had returned to the main event areas. The reunion had been emotional but brief, as Charlotte was eager to leave the venue and return to the palace before Reed's absence from his duties might be noticed or before he might attempt to approach her again. During the journey back to Kensington Palace, Charlotte had wrestled with the decision about how much to reveal about the evening's events. The damage to her dress was obvious and would inevitably be discovered, but she had hoped to find a way to explain it without involving the extensive security investigation that would follow any report of a threat to her personal safety. Charlotte's attempts to handle the situation discreetly had included hiding the damaged dress in her wardrobe and leaving her jewelry in the palace's secure storage area rather than in her personal dressing room. She had hoped that these actions would buy her time to decide how to address the incident without causing alarm among the palace staff or security personnel. However, the discovery of the hidden dress by her personal attendant had made it impossible to continue concealing what had happened. Charlotte now realized that her attempts to protect others and avoid complications had only created a more complex situation that required her to reveal the full truth about the events at the charity gala. Detective Inspector Williams felt the pieces of the puzzle beginning to align as she reviewed the latest developments in the investigation. The breakthrough had come from an unexpected source: the venue's night security guard, Thomas Patterson, who had reported to work for his regular shift the evening after the charity gala, and discovered something that had initially seemed insignificant, but now appeared crucial to understanding what had happened. Patterson had found a small diamond earring in the service corridor area of the building during his routine security walkthrough. The earring had been lodged behind a piece of electrical equipment, easily overlooked during normal cleaning operations, but visible to someone conducting a thorough security inspection. Patterson had followed protocol by logging the discovery and placing the item in the venue's lost property collection. When Williams learned about this discovery through her systematic inquiries with the venue's staff, she immediately recognized the potential significance of the earring's location. The service corridors were far from the areas where guests had been present during the charity gala, making it highly unlikely that jewelry would have been lost there through normal circumstances. Williams arranged to examine the earring and confirmed that it matched the description of the jewelry that Princess Charlotte had been wearing during the gala. The discovery provided the first concrete evidence that the princess had indeed been present in the venue's service areas, supporting Williams's developing theory that something significant had occurred beyond the official event schedule. The location where the earring was found became the focus of intensive investigation. Williams's team processed the service corridor for additional evidence, using advanced forensic techniques to search for fingerprints, fabric fibers, and any other traces that might provide clues about what had transpired in that location. The investigation revealed several important details that helped piece together the sequence of events. Scuff marks on the corridor floor suggested that some kind of struggle or rapid movement had occurred in the area. Additionally, Williams's team discovered small tears in the wall covering that contained fabric fibers consistent with the material of Princess Charlotte's dress. Most significantly, the forensic examination revealed fingerprints on the wall and nearby equipment that did not belong to known building maintenance staff or security personnel. When these fingerprints were run through the police database, they matched records for Marcus Reed, a recently hired maintenance worker who had access to the venue's service areas during the evening of the charity gala. Reed's employment background check revealed several troubling details that had not been thoroughly investigated when he was hired for the temporary position. Previous employers had noted erratic behavior and an inappropriate interest in high-profile events and individuals. There had been incidents at other venues where Reed had attempted to gain unauthorized access to restricted areas during celebrity appearances or official functions. Williams immediately issued directives to locate Reed for questioning. However, when officers arrived at his listed address, they discovered that he had vacated the property 2 days earlier, leaving no forwarding information. His disappearance coincided precisely with the timeline of the charity gala incident, suggesting that he had fled after whatever confrontation had occurred with Princess Charlotte. The investigation into Reed's recent activities revealed a pattern of behavior that indicated obsessive interest in Princess Charlotte specifically. His social media accounts, which he had attempted to delete but which were recoverable through digital forensics, contained numerous posts about the princess's charity work and public appearances. The posts showed an escalating pattern of personal identification with Charlotte's causes and a delusional belief that they shared a special connection. Reed had been systematically attending public events where Princess Charlotte was scheduled to appear, often taking photographs and making posts about feeling inspired by encounters that existed only in his imagination. The maintenance job at the charity gala venue appeared to have been specifically sought as an opportunity to engineer a more direct interaction with the princess. Williams's investigation team also discovered that Reed had been conducting surveillance of Kensington Palace's external perimeter during the weeks leading up to the charity gala. Security camera footage from nearby businesses showed him walking past the palace gates on multiple occasions, sometimes stopping to take photographs or observe the security procedures used for royal vehicles entering and leaving the grounds. The pattern of surveillance and the timing of his employment at the venue created a clear picture of premeditation that elevated the case from a simple security incident to a potential stalking situation with serious implications for royal security protocols. Williams coordinated with the palace security team to implement enhanced protective measures for Princess Charlotte while the search for Reed continued. Meanwhile, Williams had been granted permission to speak directly with Princess Charlotte about the events of the charity gala evening. The interview was conducted in the princess's private study, with minimal security presence to encourage open communication while maintaining appropriate protection protocols. Charlotte's account of the evening's events provided the missing pieces of the investigation puzzle. Her detailed description of helping the lost child, the encounter with Reed in the service corridor, and the subsequent confrontation confirmed Williams's theories about what had transpired. The princess's courage in protecting Emily while managing a dangerous situation with Reed demonstrated both her commitment to child welfare and her ability to handle threats with composure. Charlotte explained her decision to conceal the incident as motivated by concern for Emily's well-being and desire to avoid disrupting the upcoming state visit preparations. She had hoped that Reed's behavior represented an isolated incident that could be addressed without creating broader security concerns. However, she now understood that her silence had potentially allowed a dangerous individual to remain free and possibly plan additional approaches. The revelation of Emily Watson's involvement in the incident added another dimension to the investigation. Williams interviewed Emily and her grandmother, both of whom confirmed the princess's account of the evening's events. Emily's description of the scary man who had led them into the dark corridors provided additional evidence of Reed's deliberate manipulation of the situation to isolate the princess. Emily's grandmother, Mrs. Dorothy Watson, provided crucial information about the beginning of the incident. She explained that she and Emily had indeed become separated in the confusion of the event's conclusion, but that she had been actively searching for her granddaughter near the main reception areas. Reed's claim to have seen her in the service areas had been fabricated as part of his plan to lure Princess Charlotte away from her security detail. Williams coordinated with national law enforcement agencies to issue alerts for Reed's apprehension. His behavior pattern suggested someone whose mental state was deteriorating and who might attempt to escalate his efforts to contact Princess Charlotte. The investigation revealed that Reed had recently lost his previous job due to inappropriate behavior and had been experiencing increasing social isolation that appeared to have contributed to his obsessive focus on the princess. The security implications of Reed's successful manipulation of the charity gala situation led to comprehensive reviews of protection protocols for royal family members attending public events. The incident highlighted vulnerabilities in security procedures that could be exploited by individuals with inside knowledge of venue layouts and operations. Williams also discovered that Reed had been collecting information about upcoming royal engagements through social media monitoring and public event announcements. His digital footprint revealed research into several upcoming events where Princess Charlotte was scheduled to appear, suggesting that the charity gala incident might have been intended as the first of multiple planned approaches. The forensic analysis of the fibers found in Princess Charlotte's torn dress confirmed that they had come from Reed's work uniform, providing physical evidence of the contact that had occurred during their confrontation. Combined with the fingerprint evidence from the service corridor, this created a strong case for charges related to assault, stalking, and making threats against a member of the royal family. As Williams continued coordinating the search for Reed, she worked closely with the palace communications team to manage information about the incident. The upcoming Danish state visit required careful handling of any security-related revelations that might affect diplomatic protocols or public confidence in royal protection procedures. The investigation also revealed gaps in the background checking procedures used by venues hosting royal events. Reed's employment at the charity gala location had involved minimal screening beyond basic identity verification, despite his access to service areas that could potentially be used to approach royal guests. Williams recommended enhanced security protocols for all individuals with access to venues during royal visits. The missing diamond necklace remained unrecovered, but Williams suspected that Reed had taken it during the struggle in the service corridor. The theft of crown jewels, even accessories temporarily on loan, represented a serious criminal offense that added federal implications to the charges that would eventually be filed against Reed when he was apprehended. Princess Charlotte's cooperation with the investigation had been complete and helpful, but Williams could see the emotional toll that the incident and its aftermath had taken on the young royal. The violation of her trust in a situation where she had been trying to help a child had been particularly disturbing, challenging her ability to engage naturally with the public during official functions. The case had evolved from a mysterious wardrobe incident to a complex stalking investigation with implications for royal security, child protection, and international diplomatic relations. Williams knew that Reed's eventual capture and prosecution would be essential, not only for justice but also for restoring confidence in the security measures that protected the royal family during their public service activities. 3 weeks after the discovery of the damaged dress, Marcus Reed was apprehended by police in Edinburgh, Scotland, where he had been living under a false identity while working at a small hotel near the city center. His capture came about through a combination of digital surveillance and alert hotel staff, who had noticed his nervous behavior and reluctance to provide identification for employment records. Reed had been discovered with several items in his possession that linked him directly to the charity gala incident. The stolen diamond necklace from Princess Charlotte's jewelry set was found wrapped in newspaper in his hotel room, along with photographs he had taken surreptitiously during various royal events over the previous months. Most disturbing was a detailed journal in which he had recorded his fantasies about developing a personal relationship with the princess and his plans for future encounters. Detective Inspector Williams conducted the initial interrogation of Reed in Edinburgh before his transfer to London for formal charging. During questioning, Reed revealed the extent of his obsession and the months of planning that had preceded the charity gala incident. His mental state evaluation confirmed that he was experiencing delusional episodes related to his fixation on Princess Charlotte, requiring psychiatric treatment along with criminal prosecution. Reed's confession provided complete details about his manipulation of the charity gala security arrangements. He had specifically sought employment at the venue after learning about the planned event through public announcements, His position as a maintenance worker had given him access to building layouts and security procedures that he had studied carefully in preparation for creating an opportunity to approach the princess alone. The plan to use Emily Watson as an unwitting accomplice had been developed after Reed observed her separation from her grandmother during the event's conclusion. He had deliberately misdirected the child and then presented himself as helpful in order to convince Princess Charlotte to follow him into the service areas where security coverage was minimal. Reed's journal entries revealed that he had expected Princess Charlotte to be grateful for his assistance with the lost child and to recognize their supposed special connection. When she had instead insisted on returning to the main event areas, his emotional response had escalated into the physical confrontation that resulted in the damaged dress and stolen jewelry. The investigation also uncovered evidence that Reed had been planning additional attempts to approach Princess Charlotte at upcoming royal events. His research into the Danish state visit security arrangements had been extensive, suggesting that he intended the charity gala incident to be the beginning of a campaign of increasingly bold approaches to the princess. Princess Charlotte testified during Reed's eventual trial, providing a clear and composed account of the evening's events that helped secure his conviction on multiple charges including stalking, assault, theft of crown property, and making threats against a member of the royal family. The court proceedings were conducted with strict media restrictions to protect both the princess's privacy and Emily Watson's identity as a child witness. Reed received a sentence of 8 years in prison, along with mandatory psychiatric treatment and a lifetime restraining order, prohibiting any contact with members of the royal family. The severity of the sentence reflected both the serious nature of his crimes and the potential threat he continued to represent if left untreated and unsupervised. The incident led to comprehensive reforms in security protocols for royal engagements at public venues. New procedures required extensive background checks for all staff with access to buildings during royal visits, including temporary employees and subcontractors. The reforms also included enhanced communication systems between royal security details and local law enforcement agencies. Princess Charlotte worked closely with the palace's child protection specialists to ensure that Emily Watson and her family received appropriate support following their involvement in the incident. The princess maintained contact with the family and invited them to a private tea at the palace once the legal proceedings were concluded. Emily's resilience and recovery became an inspiration for Charlotte's continued advocacy for child welfare programs. The damaged dress was ultimately donated to a textile conservation program at a leading museum, where it became part of a study on the preservation of historical garments. The museum's experts were able to partially restore the dress while maintaining evidence of its damage as part of the historical record of royal security incidents. The missing diamond necklace was returned to the Crown Jewels collection after extensive authentication and cleaning procedures. However, the incident prompted a review of security protocols for jewelry loans from the Crown collection, resulting in enhanced tracking and protection procedures for items temporarily removed from their secure storage. Margaret Thompson, the personal attendant whose discovery had initiated the investigation, received commendation for her attention to detail and proper handling of a sensitive security situation. Her discretion and professionalism during the investigation had been essential to maintaining confidentiality while ensuring that appropriate authorities were notified promptly. The Danish state visit proceeded as planned, with Princess Charlotte participating fully in all scheduled events. The successful completion of the diplomatic ceremonies helped restore confidence in royal security arrangements and demonstrated that the incident had not compromised the royal family's ability to fulfill their official duties safely and effectively. Detective Inspector Williams received recognition for her thorough and sensitive handling of the investigation. The case became a model for managing complex situations involving royal security while balancing the need for public safety with the requirements of diplomatic protocol and family privacy. The charity organization that hosted the original gala implemented enhanced security procedures and staff training programs based on lessons learned from the incident. Despite the negative events associated with the venue, Princess Charlotte chose to continue her support for children's literacy programs, viewing Reed's actions as an aberration that should not diminish the important work being done by dedicated educators and volunteers. Emily Watson's experience with Princess Charlotte inspired her to develop her own interest in helping other children through reading and education programs. The princess maintained a correspondence with Emily and her grandmother, and Emily eventually became a junior ambassador for one of Charlotte's literacy initiatives when she reached her teenage years. The investigation revealed the importance of comprehensive mental health resources for individuals struggling with obsessive behaviors before they escalate into criminal actions. Princess Charlotte became an advocate for improved mental health support services, viewing prevention as crucial to protecting both potential victims and individuals whose untreated conditions might lead them toward dangerous behaviors. The wardrobe incident and its resolution ultimately strengthened security procedures while demonstrating the royal family's resilience in the face of personal threats. Princess Charlotte's handling of the situation, from her protective actions during the original incident to her cooperation with the investigation and testimony during the trial, earned widespread respect for her courage and commitment to public service. The case file was eventually classified and archived as part of the official record of royal security incidents, serving as a reference for future investigations and security planning. The comprehensive documentation provided by Detective Inspector Williams created a valuable resource for understanding and preventing similar situations involving obsessive individuals targeting members of the royal family. Years later, Princess Charlotte would reflect on the incident as a defining moment in her understanding of both the privileges and responsibilities that came with her public role. The experience reinforced her commitment to child protection, while teaching her valuable lessons about personal security and the importance of trusting professional security personnel when unusual situations arose. The locked wardrobe that had initially concealed the damaged dress became a symbol within the palace staff of the importance of attention to detail and proper communication channels. Margaret Thompson's discovery had prevented what could have been a much more serious security situation by ensuring that Reed's actions were investigated promptly and thoroughly. The incident ultimately demonstrated that even carefully planned security arrangements could be vulnerable to manipulation by determined individuals with inside knowledge and unstable mental states. However, it also showed that prompt investigation, professional law enforcement cooperation, and brave testimony from victims could successfully bring dangerous stalkers to justice while protecting both the royal family and innocent bystanders like Emily Watson. Princess Charlotte's recovery from the trauma of the incident became part of her personal growth as a public figure, helping her develop enhanced awareness of security risks while maintaining her natural warmth and accessibility during public engagements. The experience strengthened her resolve to continue her charity work while being more vigilant about potential threats from unstable individuals who might misinterpret her public service as personal connection.